Losing a child, even experiencing a loss adjacent, creates a darkness, a haunting sadness, and an unsettling and immeasurable sense of loss. It's hard for us to comprehend how such innocence can meet such a tragic fate. There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. Spoken by Nelson Mandela, this sentiment is universal. And as universal as it is, the case today is a reflection of the worst the universe has to offer. It's a case in which the depravity knows no depths. I'm your host, JT, and this is Women on Death Row. Let's get into it. At the time of the trial, the pronouns utilized in the court documents are he, him. Jessica now utilizes different pronouns. Any mention of the previous pronouns is from the court documents filed at the time, and it's in no way to show disrespect. Images also shown are from the time of the trial. In February of 2002, the badly decomposed remains of a 10-week-old baby girl named Montana were found after being abandoned in a storage facility in Arkansas. This discovery led police on a nationwide search for Montana's parents, and in April of 2002 led to the discovery of the badly decomposed remains of a 6-week-old baby boy named Jason, whose remains had earlier been abandoned in a storage facility in Arizona in December 2000. Police located Chrissy Wentz and Jessica Jason Hann at a motel in Maine, where Hann was holding 1-month-old Michael. Both Chrissy and Hann were arrested. Jason was born in Ohio on May 23, 1999. Just 6 weeks later, he died in Vermont on July 4th. Chrissy and Hann initially kept Jason's remains in a plastic container in the back seat of their car as they traveled the country. A little over a year later, Chrissy was pregnant again, and the couple stayed in a pop-up trailer at a campground in New Hampshire. It was here that they befriended Jean and Walter Steves, who were staying at the neighboring campsite as they moved from New Hampshire to Florida. They became close, like family, and ate dinner and sat around the campfire together almost every night. Hann, however, did most of the talking on Chrissy's behalf. During one conversation, Hann told the Steves they had lost a son, Jason, who died from a crib death. Hann then said, "Isn't that right, Chrissy?" And she confirmed his statement. The Steves left the campground in October. Chrissy and Hann left sometime thereafter. Montana was born in Lake Havasu, Arizona, on December 1st, 2000. Hann called the Steves that day to tell them about Montana's birth, and that they named her Montana Jean after Jean Steves. On December 9th, 2002, just over a week after Montana was born, Hann rented a storage unit in Lake Havasu, Arizona, where he would leave the pop-up trailer. Chrissy and Hann drove Montana to Florida and stayed with the Steves for 2 weeks over the Christmas holiday, leaving New Year's Day bound for California. Hann told Steves he would call when they arrived. Neither Hann nor Chrissy ever called the Steves again. They moved to a trailer park in California, where they all lived together in a 30-foot by 12-foot trailer. In the trailer, Montana usually slept in bed with Chrissy and Hann. Sometimes she slept in the bathtub when she would not stop crying. Both parents fed Montana, but Chrissy often woke up at night to feed her. Hann changed the baby most of the time. Chrissy sometimes did. When she was not working, she spent a lot of time with Montana. Chrissy would claim Montana was never injured before her death. Montana died about 6 weeks later, in that trailer, on February 10th, 2001, in Desert Hot Springs, California. After working that morning at a woman's house in Palm Springs, Chrissy returned to the trailer park and was greeted by Hann outside the trailer saying, "I have to tell you something." Hann claimed he had put Montana in the bathtub with a bottle of milk and cereal, then left the trailer. When he went back inside, Montana was dead and had, quote, puke around her mouth and face. Chrissy entered the trailer and picked up Montana, who was lying dead in the bathtub. She said Montana was wrapped in a blanket and felt cold. Chrissy did not see any vomit on the baby. Neither of the parents called 911 or sought assistance from anyone. After sitting on the toilet holding Montana for a while, Chrissy left the trailer with Hann to stay at a motel, leaving Montana behind in the bathtub because she, quote, didn't want to deal with it. Chrissy and Hann kept Montana's remains in a plastic bag under the bed in their trailer so they could, quote, keep her longer and she can stay with them and she could sleep. On October 16th, 2001, defendant and Hann rented a storage unit in Wynne, Arkansas. After rent for the storage unit went unpaid, the storage facility auctioned off the contents of the unit, which included the pop-up trailer. B&D Transport purchased the trailer at auction. On February 18th, 2002, a B&D representative contacted police after he found Montana's remains while emptying the contents of a plastic container that had been in the trailer into the dumpster. Montana's hand was visible in the dumpster. Her head and face were completely encased in several layers of black duct tape. Inside the abandoned pop-up trailer, police found photographs of Chrissy and maps of several other states. They traced the trailer's New Hampshire license plate to Hann. Police sought arrest warrants for Chrissy and Hann, whom police suspected were no longer in Arkansas. The police contacted the owners of a nationwide motel chain, which issued a be on the lookout for them. As a result, on April 22, 2002, police in Portland, Maine, responded to a call informing them that Chrissy and Hann were staying at a motel there. While police were formulating a plan to get the suspects in custody without incident, Chrissy, quote, ran into the police as she approached a vending machine in the lobby. Police arrested her without incident. In an effort to get Hann out of the room, the motel clerk called him and told him that Chrissy had twisted her ankle and they were going to call for medical help. Hann replied, quote, No, don't do that. I'll be right down and take care of it myself. When Hann exited his motel room holding 1-month-old Michael, police took Michael and arrested Hann. Police contacted the Maine Human Services Department, who placed Michael in the foster home of Jane R. within 12 to 15 hours of Hann's arrest. The first day of that placement, Jan observed Michael did not appear healthy. He was flaccid. He did not flail his arms or wiggle his feet. He did not cry loudly, but rather mewed like a kitten. His eyes did not track objects well, and he appeared too thin. Jan did not observe any physical injuries such as bruising or swelling, so she immediately took Michael to a doctor. Michael was admitted to the hospital on April 24, 2002. Staff noted he was lethargic, had poor tone, was not tracking well with his eyes, and appeared to be in pain upon movement. He had no external signs of trauma, no bruises, and no obvious injuries. However, X-rays revealed that Michael had 13 rib fractures. Evidence of healing suggested the fractures were 1 to 2 weeks old. 4 bones in Michael's legs were also fractured near both knees and one ankle. CT and MRI scans of Michael's head showed bleeding on the surface of the brain. Subdural hematomas in various locations of at least 2 different ages, some days old, others a week or 2 old. Bleeding into the brain tissue and bruising of the brain itself. An ophthalmologist observed extensive hemorrhaging in multiple layers of Michael's retinas. A certified child abuse pediatrician opined these injuries were caused by violent shaking on more than one occasion. He further said these types of injuries would not have been observable if Michael's body had decomposed. The day after Chrissy and Hann were arrested in connection with Montana's death, Mojave County Sheriff's deputies searched the trailer. In a storage compartment beneath a bench, deputies discovered Jason's decomposed remains inside a black nylon bag, which was wrapped in 17 plastic trash bags, with air fresheners placed in the 9th bag, all of which had been placed inside the storage container. Jason's birth certificate and other paperwork left in the trailer connected the trailer to Chrissy and Hann. 3 days after her arrest and after waiving her Miranda rights, Chrissy spoke to Portland, Maine police officer Carl Rybeck about baby Michael. She told Rybeck that Michael had been born March 21st, 2002, in West Virginia 4 weeks earlier. Neither she nor Hann had worked since. When Michael cried, Chrissy would hold him, walk with him, and try to rock him. Sometimes they put Michael in a crib in the bathtub so they could close the bathroom door. Hann would turn the TV volume louder when he got mad at Michael for crying. Chrissy stated she was Michael's primary caregiver when he cried. She claimed she never saw Hann harm or shake the baby and denied doing so herself. With the exception of leaving to get meals or to go shopping, Chrissy said she, Hann, and Michael were always together. When confronted with Michael's injuries, the defendant got emotional, acted dumbfounded, and claimed she was unaware he had been hurt. Chrissy claimed Hann was a good father and she never saw him get violent with her children. Because authorities determined Jason had died in Vermont, his remains were sent there so the state's chief medical examiner could perform an autopsy. Due to the decomposition of Jason's remains, the autopsy could not detect any soft tissue injuries. However, the autopsy revealed Jason had suffered a fractured rib adjacent to his spinal column at or near the time of death. The location of the fracture indicated inflicted trauma rather than accidental injury, and is characteristic of abuse in which the child has been grabbed about the chest and abdomen, and, with pressure, being squeezed on the back and front. This can occur in shaking kinds of injuries or in which an infant is picked up and thrown against something. The medical examiner determined Jason's death was caused by homicide by undetermined means. The chief medical examiner at the Arkansas State Crime Laboratory performed an autopsy on Montana. Her body was mostly decomposed, which limited the ability to observe soft tissue injuries. However, the autopsy revealed Montana suffered linear fractures through the entire thickness of both parietal bones of her skull, the bony plates on the top and the sides of the skull. The fractures were caused by severe blunt force. Because both parietal bones were broken, quote, either something struck her head on one side and then the other, or she was swung such that her head impacted a hard surface twice. The skull fractures showed no signs of healing. Montana's left tibia was also fractured in 2 pieces. According to Dr. Coates, this fracture was caused by bending or twisting the leg, quote, in a manner similar to if you wanted to break a pencil. There was evidence of healing, which indicated the fracture was inflicted 3 to 4 weeks before Montana's death, when she was about 6 weeks old. External symptoms of this fracture, swelling and redness, would have been obvious to the naked eye, and it inevitably would have caused pain that resulted in excessive crying or fussiness. Montana's lower left leg, near the ankle, exhibited periosteal thickening, indicating trauma short of a fracture. This condition would have been very painful and could have caused swelling and redness. Dr. Coates concluded the cause of Montana's death was homicidal violence by undetermined means. He identified 3 possible mechanisms of death: blunt force trauma to the head, blunt force trauma to the head followed by wrapping with duct tape to ensure death by suffocation, and suffocation with duct tape, with the skull fractures being inflicted after death. Dr. Coates said the most likely mechanism was blunt force trauma to the head. The duct tape was likely used to contain any blood or fluid that might have been taking place at the time, because there's no other reason to do that. In 2006, Hann pleaded no contest to second-degree murder for killing Jason in Vermont and was sentenced to 27 to 30 years. Hann was then extradited to California in 2009, where he was charged with premeditated murder and child endangerment with respect to Montana. Although Hann pleaded not guilty to the first-degree murder charge, Hann had admitted to killing Jason and Montana. In court, Hann's lawyer, Brenda Miller, stated that Hann had severe bipolar disorder since childhood. Hann had been treated several times for bipolar disorder, but he checked himself out of facilities against medical advice and refused to take medication. Miller compared Hann's cycles of rage to a swing on a children's playground, going up and down, and said 10-week-old Montana took the brunt of it one day. Quote, just as Hann's anxiety and rage was reaching its peak, Montana began to cry, and her cries got louder and louder, and Hann's rage just exploded, Miller said, at which point Hann punched the baby with a closed fist. Mental illness is no excuse for what Hann did, but she asked the jury to consider the lesser conviction, which carried a sentence of 15 years to life. In December of 2013, a jury of 9 women and 3 men convicted Hann on both counts, and in February of 2014 was sentenced to death. In 2009, Chrissy was charged with the second-degree murder of Montana. Prosecution did not concede Chrissy was not the direct perpetrator, but the evidence at her trial focused on the theory that she was guilty on an implied malice or aiding and abetting theory for neglecting her legal duty to protect Montana despite knowing Hann was abusing her. In 2014, shortly after Hann's death penalty sentencing, Chrissy was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Thank you for tuning in to Women on Death Row. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment below letting us know what your thoughts are about this case. If you've liked what you've seen, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, and then become a member by clicking the join button and get notified when each video in the series is released. I'm JT, and until next time, take care of yourself, your friends, family, and community. Don't let anybody dull your sparkle. And shine on, you crazy diamonds. Shine on.